All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Film the World podcast. It is absolutely an honor to be back with you, man. So we've been putting in a lot of work here, and I want you to kind of know how this process kind of works and how I've designed it, because maybe it's not so straightforward, right? So to give you an idea, I've been more or less building notebooks on a regular basis now to kind of like keep myself organized, honest, and kind of like flowing with this stuff, right? And the only way we could do that is to kind of stay organized and to make this fun for y'all. And because you're part of, you're part of the Candyland ride here. I want to make it easy and more or less transparent for you to like jump on board, right? So kind of how I've designed this is so you could basically just go and get a notebook. This is a regular A5 standard notebook, right? I like the ones with the bungee cords, right? Because they're just like, this stuff is snappy, man. I just like it. I like it, right? And there's like this little secret pocket in the back. It doesn't matter if you get these on Amazon. It doesn't really matter. I don't really have any preference other than the fact that it's got a little bungee cord thing. And that's just because you can go and sometimes stick maybe extra pieces of material in here. And this is for your benefit. And you don't have to do this. This is just showing you how you can physically, follow along without really needing to know much of anything. So this is unique to my solve process, right? Where we would start with a blank notebook, right? And you can decide to go and I'll probably go and make cover pages and chapter pages and all that kind of fun stuff that you could choose to go and put in here if you want. But right now, I've got my introduction to Candyland, and I've got it printed here. So this is on a thermal sheet. So this is just like a standard printing label from a Rollo thermal printer. And this is more or less how I've been managing my notes and staying organized for myself. So everything kind of like stays neat, organized. And then all you have to do is go to the first page that you want to start on, right? And then you just literally go and stick it in, okay? And then these are small enough that like you can kind of like put them up in the corner and close to the center median. And you've got all this space on the sides and on the bottom to more or less add notes for yourself, okay? But this is basically how I go about building notes. How I'm like extremely OCD data analyst, man. And in order to keep everything cohesive, this is more or less how I operate, right? And I printed it in a font that is easily, legible. You read this at a distance, right? And I understand what it is to not have glasses, so that's why I got LASIK and all that good stuff, and that's why I try to make this more or less easier for you to read, okay? So that's more or less how this thing works as like a mechanism. So with each one of my like PDF updates, you don't feel like you have to like feverishly take notes. I don't know about you, but I do a lot of research online. And in order for me to keep notes, I'm like pausing videos. I'm like pulling like transcripts. I'm like looking up reference materials and all this crazy. This ridiculous, okay? Dude, I want everybody to speak the same language. I do not want to shadow gate this program, okay? This is very important to understand these things because you don't understand how things mechanically are manifesting otherwise, okay? And this is like a really transparent way to do that. So that's what I've designed for y'all here. And instead of like buying books or waiting for me to go and put out a book or something stupid like that, we can do this like kind of, you know, as it gets rolled out, right? And we've got like a full solve. That's why there's like not all these, you know, like walls up and all this other crazy. You know, there will be some things that I'm gonna have to, you know, double check on how we roll them out. But this was originally designed for AI. So I've taken basically everything that I've had as far as known bias data collection, from point of sales, merchandising to, you know, different types of category management, all that crazy, all this boring stuff that doesn't really matter. The big things are the mechanics of the cog. And that's why I put together this fun little solve system for us. And it should be easier and more transparent versus like trying to follow along in the media and all this other stuff where they're not going to explain these different metrics. And I'm not like, you know, we're not pointing fingers, right? We will call the stakeholders, you know, when the time comes. But, you know, for now, we need to know all the different parameters of the game, okay? So this is super exciting, man. So we found out that we're playing Candyland, okay? That's amazing. Oh, man, that's fantastic. So you mean I've been living all this life and I've only just found out now that I'm playing Candyland? Bro, they're holding out on us, right? So, you know, we'll figure out about like the admission and all that other crazy here later on. But for now, we know that we're playing Candyland, okay? Sweet. And we've got our little closet of protection. So I'm not going to continue to, like, for a while, we'll continue to go into the box to stage the ego. But this is more or less a method, okay? Before we go and do any of these things, reference the box framing, okay? Then we go and make it Candyland, you know, because then we can walk it out on the stage, right? And, okay. So we know that we're playing Candyland and we know that there are different rules within Candyland. Some of them are to continue being in Candyland. Some of them are the overall metrics of Candyland. And then some are like, you know, methods of metadata, let's say. And because it's like a metadata metric, they're up for interpretation. So these are defined for me, and I kind of threw them together in like 14 organized, cohesive instance, like things that we're targeting, right? And then those are what I'm binding myself to. Now you can choose to negate those, okay? I'm not saying how anybody needs to behave in Candyland, okay? What I will say is that will trigger the cog, which we will get into in a later time because we're not like there yet, okay? We got to figure out more metrics of what we got going on here. And you may be thinking, besides, you know, having all these print ready documents, Will, besides having all this awesome metaphor crap you've got going on with like Candy, you know, how am I going to remember this stuff? No fear. Okay. I've created characters. okay? And then they're going to play it out on my stage, which is this stage, and which is just your flattened box, right? And they will help reference this material. So they'll be like part of your node-based internal structure that you won't necessarily have to reference, which I will be referencing for your benefit, okay? Just because I guess selfishly want like a ecosystem where we can all communicate. How amazing. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. So the first character that we're going to be introducing is G-Man Ghee, okay? He's a can full of ghee. This man he's always on the case, you know? He's at a higher level. He's a G-Man, okay? But he's full of ghee, okay? But he lives a canned experience of synthetic ghee, okay? And this man, okay, when he's on the case, he's pulling all your reference node-based material as far as mechanical functions for the operation of Candyland for your benefit. So you don't have to remember these things, okay? This is, again, for you to experience, right? Okay. All right. The next guy we got in the case. The next guy. I've got Special Agent Scoby-One-Can-O-B. Oh, dude, he is floating over the BS. The man is actually doing the dead man float, okay? He is finessing his way into the situation here, okay? And we're going to send him on deep missions, okay? Deep sea missions, okay? This is spectacular, folks. We will eventually start figuring out what our names are. And this will all come 360 right now, okay? So we'll send in Special Agent Scoby-One-Can-O-B, okay? When we need to rise above and float on the surface, and then we're gonna go and, helicopter in and pull out the Juice Baxter box 2000, and he's gonna drip us that intellect, okay? Okay. Meanwhile, we are Yokie-You, okay? Now, Yokie-You is new to the block, okay? He's an egg, okay? He's fresh out of the chute, okay? He's up to only positive things, okay? He's experiencing the world. This is you. This is me. We are the egg, okay? We are a new egg in Candyland. The world is beautiful. It is absolutely blooming with life, okay? There's so much going on here, okay? And this is your new egg experience, okay, in Candyland. Which is so fitting because we're going into Easter, okay? You are Yokie-You, okay? This is your destiny. You are an egg. You are an egg man or lady, okay? This is so important. All right? We are becoming, okay? We are hatching. We are hatching into a new, all right? Now, as we go on this journey, it's going to be so important to be aware, right? But no fear, because we've got G-Man Ghee. He knows all this stuff, okay? He knows where these traps are placed. They're booby traps, right? And we don't want to step in those, because We don't have any time for that. Nobody's got any time for that, okay? We're rising above, okay? So what we need to look at first, this is the model I call the drip, okay? Now, this is like a point of, I guess, importance of priority. And this is something I've collected. And now I've had a number of different trainings that present this and, you know, with different titles or whatever. I specifically call it the drip, okay? Because the bottom of the drop of water is typically where your primary focus is, right? But if you can see, this is like an upside down triangle, okay? So we start at the top. So normally when people look at the population, they kind of break it down like this on a priority scale. And at the tippy tip, or the bottom of this pyramid, the tip, because it's pointed down, is where the most amount of focus typically is. The mostest, right? Okay, so we start with, and there's 7 of these, okay? And in the drip format, we start with civilization. So civilization is on top. Typically, the average player number 1 or player number 2, it could be player number 3. I never thought about that. You know, they may think about civilization last. In fact, I know they do. They absolutely think about civilization last. You can see that everywhere. Okay, this reflects itself everywhere. Okay, now that's number 1. Okay, so that's all the way to the top. Then we have nation state, because then we're picking identities, right? This is why we've already taken our ego, we've taken it off, put it on the rack in our little box that we've designed. So we can look at these things, right? And nation state. So that'd be number 2. Number 3, region. We've got region. So that would be the next closest to yourself that you'd feel, right? After you've established your region, you can have your community, right? So it could be your community of, you know, sports team, gamers, whatever it is, whatever that community is, you know, faith-based, whatever it is, right? Then family is typically next, okay? And then team, followed by self, okay? And team and family are kind of like broad spectrum. Sometimes it's blood, and sometimes it's actually your team. But most times it's not. It's clicky stuff, right? Okay. So that's the drip. And this is important to kind of like baseline understand how the average player is playing the game of Candyland, okay? So I don't want to get you caught off guard, man. It's super important to be aware of these things, because remember, we're not judging people. So in order to not judge, we need understanding. So we're creating a method, you know, utilizing G-Man Ghee, you know, just giving us that intellect so we know that we don't have to worry about our emotions or whatever afflicting whatever we're looking at, right? Okay. So now this next one is pretty advanced. So now this one is more or less a chart for how people professionally track and label information, okay? Before we really get into it too much, I guess the biggest thing to take away is the 2 specific types of information, okay? The others don't really matter. I mean, they matter because I know how they operate or whatever, and I'm not gonna like, you don't need to know them right now. Let's put it that way. You do not need to know how some of these things operate just yet. You do, however, need to know how information comes in. It typically comes in two forms, okay? One is called Humint, okay? Humint. This is human intelligence, okay? So, and we're playing Candyland, so this is a boxed intelligent unit, okay? These are specifically created in a specific way so we could stack them and build an image. This is to rectify or rasterize the image, okay? All right. So most of how we currently consume information is not Humint. We're currently exploiting Sigint. Sigint is like signaled intelligent markers, okay? And this comes in a multitude of forms, okay? For the purposes of this discussion, we're placing it into two boxes, right? We've got Humint and Sigint. Signal-int is way less reliable, right? Because we don't know who's all playing Candyland. A lot of players do not know they're playing Candyland, okay? If they don't know they're playing Candyland, they're not going to be an effective player, okay? Yeah. Anyway. So we've got the two different types of information. Now, you'll see a majority of the news that we currently get, if we get news, will be Sigint, okay? Sigint is easily categorized as kind of like the gray, right? Because most of these things, most Sigint is mostly true to shed doubt. It's normally just out there as a ripple. All of these things are reflections anyway. I'm breaking them down in a specific method so that we can go about solving them, right? And like I said, I designed this originally as like an AI program so that this could, you know, solve more mechanical things on a day-to-day basis. What I've come to realize, this is better for understanding how things actually work and to bridge communication between people, which are ultimately going to be what the singularity is anyway. I don't care who you talk to. That's the real, okay? That is the real. All right. And this is the last thing I'm going to leave you with. Now, these are specifically designed, the drip, Sigint, Humint are designed in a specific way to shed doubt of the doer that not is, or the player that is not, right? Because they don't maybe realize they're playing Candyland, okay? So there's this current loop that you'll be programmed into. It becomes cyclical. You cannot stop thinking about it, okay? This is another reason why I've created the concept of Candyland as a form of a boxed entity, because this is truly living rent-free in somebody's head. This triggers the OODA loop, okay? OODA, okay? Now, OODA is a method of novelty. Now, like, we've done this in like war and stuff and like other things. I'm not even sure. Like gaming. This is like more or less, I guess, a game strategy because like if we're playing like that game, like chess, right? You play out different elements on the stage to coax out, you know, the piece that you're truly after, right? And what OODA typically stages or props up would present a like a stagecraft where you have presented an element of doubt. And it doesn't necessarily have to be doubt. It could just be narrative. But anyway, it puts you into a programming loop. The programming loop is OODA. It is first, observe. I observe XYZ, right? Number 2, orient. You're orienting yourself to what you've observed, right? You're facing it head on, all right? Decide. You've faced it head on and you've decided what you will do. And then you act. Boom. And this is like the most direct and aggressive reaction-oriented stagecraft that is currently deployed. All right. Now, this is typically triggered through emotions. This is typically in all things. I just want you to be aware that it's even a thing because we're just talking about the metrics, the mechanics. We're getting a feel for what Candyland is, right? We're getting a feel for maybe what we did not know or were not aware of, right? But the main takeaway for today is that, yo, I've made this so you can like literally print and stick these on like stickers in 5A notebooks, okay? I've organized this stuff for literally years, like in excess of like 6 years now at this point, for the sheer purpose of answering these 4 fundamental questions, okay? And I'm going to leave you with these every single time, okay? Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? And what are my names? Say my name. Yeah, I forgot it was Walter White, the legend himself. Walter White, say my name. Yes, say my name. The problem is I don't know my name, you know? And then you will realize soon that is not so straightforward. I will leave you with this, you know? I'm trying to do the mostest here. I'm trying to be the change and the reflection that I need to see in this world. And that's what this is. This is a praxeology where we could take it to the next level. And thank you. Thank you for being part of that. Have a great day. Peace.